Welcome to Art Loves Fashion. I'm your host, Sharonda Irving. I'm an image consultant, professional developer, art curator and collector, a wife and a mom. This show, Art Loves Fashion, is about, you guessed it, art, love, and fashion. We'll be meeting new people, trying interesting things, and hopefully learning something new. Sounds kind of vague, right? That's because I want you to join me on Sundays at 5 o'clock as we take a journey of all things creative and beautiful with art, loves, fashion. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Art Loves Fashion. I'm your host, Sharonda Irving, and I thank you for sharing your time with me today. I have a hot conversation on deck for you guys today. It's not a new conversation, but it always seems to keep cropping up, but it always seems to be a hot conversation every time it comes up. And I have some ladies in studio with me to share in that conversation, as well as a super exciting guest coming in via Zoom. And so let's get into it. First of all, I would like to introduce to you my guests. Well, you know what? I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And I'm going to say, Sam, you start. Wait, let me tell you the topic first. So then that way they can tell you how they kind of came into this conversation as well, and why I'm asking them to come along for this conversation. So Monique has been in the news again. The people stay on her back. However, she has reignited the conversation around bonnets in public and has set the conversation on fire once again. And so my guests here today are going to be like sharing in the debate and sharing their take on bonnets specifically in public. So Sam, start us off, kick us off.
Hi, I'm Samantha Leach, and my position has remained that I don't think that bonnets should be worn in public, but I'm sure we'll get into why and all the intricacies of why I believe that it kind of draws the wrong type of attention to us from a cultural perspective. And so
And so Sam, I asked Sam to join us. Sam, you actually work with a lot of not incarcerated youth, but a lot of youth who are adjudicated youth who are in transition and that kind of thing. So some of what you do is around mentorship and that kind of thing with specifically young ladies, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wanted to have your take on it because those conversations come up. Yes. We actually did some work together and pissed somebody off who decided not to come back to our to our sessions, and I think about that young lady all the time. But so welcome, thank you for joining us, and then Glenda.
Yes, ma'am. So hello, everyone. I am Glenda Lee, and I do similar work. I train young people to enter into the hospitality industry where all things first impressions matter. Yeah. So I have strong opinions about this topic as well, and I'm glad to be here to talk about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm wondering, because of the kinds of work that they do, does that already give us a sneak peek into their opinions about bonnets? But I'm going to throw a couple of questions out there to see how they sort of respond. But so Monique came on this rant. And first of all, let's just talk about, ironically, on the rant, she had on a bathrobe and no bra. And so people who responded were like, first of all, ma'am, you get yourself together before doing all this conversation about how other people need to get themselves together. But what she was saying was that she was at the airport. She saw so many black women in particular who had on bonnets and pajamas and blankets and slippers at the airport. And she was just saying that, what in the world is going on? And the two or three major points that kind of stuck out were, one, she was saying, where's our pride? Where have we sort of gone to the left in terms of being presentable when we go out in public? That was one. And then the second one she was saying was, if you don't give a damn about how you look, how do you expect to be treated? Mm-hmm. That was the other thing. And then the other thing was like, she was saying, if she sees young women, she was like, y'all not queens yet, y'all are in training, and if I see you slipping, I'm gonna tap you on the shoulder, and I'm asking other queens to do the same. So, which led me to, like, first and foremost, are you for or against bonnets in public?
So I'm totally against it, unless it's a very to me, it would have to be some very serious circumstances. I mean, I can't even think of. I mean, it would have to be an emergency for why you left out of your house without taking it off, because that's just, you just do like that, right? To remove the bonnet. And I think that sometimes I feel like I'm being insensitive, which that's not my intention, to think that everybody has the ease of just pulling their hair back in a ponytail just because that's sort of my norm. But I think that everybody can do something neat and polished to their hair. Like, for example, I have a daughter whose hair is much thicker and denser than mine, so getting her hair in a ponytail is not as easy, but it's still a possibility. Or a headband or something, you know. So I just don't think that you have to come outside with the bonnet, because that's not what it's for.
Okay. She's saying this with a smile. Let me just tell y'all.
I'm serious.
First of all, just because we on go ahead and
let me tell you.
She's being so personable right now.
Listen to me. So let me say this. So Sharonda and I were having this conversation years ago. And I literally would do what Monique was talking about doing. I would stop young girls in the street, did not know them from a can of paint, and I would tell them what the bonnet was intended for. And I would say, you should not wear that in public. Mm-hmm. I've been at the SYEP, or the summer job program, and they be in line with the bonnets on. And I'm going person to person. Why would you come here to the orientation like that? Mm-hmm. And that for them, it matched their outfit sometimes. So it's like, well, it was a bad hair day, or not even a bad hair day. It had gotten to the point where they thought that was a part of the outfit. And I think that may be the age thing, too, where, you know, in my generation, you know.
I don't think, they didn't have those available.
They did. They were all black, though.
Right.
They didn't have a bonnet to match your outfit, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I think that we just consume so much as a culture. So when somebody knows that we like something, they just make it
available.
Okay.
So
they're like, let's make this
it
in flowers, prints,
and
diamonds, and whatever you want. Because you know you got to bling it out. So you can have the rhinestones.
Yep.
Like, what do we
customize with your name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right,
okay, Glenda, for or against bonnets in public?
I am against with an asterisk.
Okay.
So if, let's say, you're preparing for an event, and you have to run out to 7-Eleven, Home Depot or something to get something real quick, and you have to go back, that's acceptable. You see people in Home Depot all the time in their sweats, in their whatever. However, if you're going to an interview at SYEP or anywhere else, if you're showing up for something like this, and I'll be honest, this is something that I live. I don't wear bonnets, but I do dress according to where I'm going to go. So when I was invited to this today, one of my questions was, is this going to be viewed or is it just audio? Because I'll dress differently if I'm not being seen. And that, I think, is very important. I come from a family where your image is your currency. For right or for wrong, years ago, you were able to advance based on how you presented yourself. And that was just what it is. So I recognize that I have that training, if you will, from my family. But even as I instruct my mentees and those in my programs, it's a reality.
So interestingly, the interesting segue or point that you're making, that this idea around your image being your currency, And there's always a lot of controversy around that idea in and of itself, right? Like this whole idea of we shouldn't judge a book by its cover and that kind of thing. And as an image consultant, we know, and brain research tells us that the brain automatically starts to form an opinion when once you see a person within the first 10 seconds, you are already forming an opinion. So it sucks, but like it's brain research that it's actually a fact. But so the next thing that kind of came to mind was this idea around respectability narratives and then leading into respectability politics. So when we start to say that the way that you look should or should not or does not have bearing on the way that you're treated, right? So image being currency, or you go out here and you're looking a certain way, so you're going to be treated a certain way. Is Monique treading into respectability politics or respectability when she's talking about we shouldn't wear bonnets? Is that a respectability narrative or is this something else?
So one of the things that you said that she mentioned was that
people, if you don't give a damn,
right? Why would anybody else care if you don't care, right? And so my perspective has always been like when I'm traveling, one, we have to deal with the fact that this whole Black people traveling, it's a new thing, like in the way that is happening now, which is a great thing. I love the fact that we're seeing other parts of the world and other countries and other states even, but we different, we just different, and we just bring a different. We are we just do everything big, right? And so I was looking at somebody posted a meme the other day of like two people on the plane with.
I was just gonna
like the seafood boil,
I was just gonna bring
like
that
in
up.
the seats. No,
Exactly.
whole pans, like a whole pan of lobster. No, it was lobster.
Were they eating it?
Were
they eating it?
Yes.
On the plane?
Yes. Box of cheese.
How did they get it through the?
I don't know. But you can bring food.
You carry on.
You can bring it. So they had a whole seafood boil. My point is that. I couldn't be the person sitting in front of you or behind you.
Or the entire plane.
Right.
No. But so, all right. So in other words, so what I'm hearing you saying is like, that's kind of a slippery slope, right? Like we're going from like head wrap to like you on the plane with a seafood boil.
But but guess what? You usually associate those two types, right? You're like, okay, she was the person with the head wrap, or not even the head wrap, but the bonnet on with the slippers. She got her whole fried chicken meal. Like that's how we do. And I'm saying that unfortunately, when you're coming through security and you got your pajamas on and your slippers and your head bonnet, because when I get off the plane, I'm ready to hit the road when I get where I'm going. So even if I have a wrap on, I look the part because
But okay, so I think that when we're traveling, I think that there's these like differing schools of thought, right? I think that there's this idea of, because in some of the responses, people are like, the aunties are doing too much, or like the aunties are policing. I think that there has been a shift in the way that we view, quote unquote, what's presentable and what's not presentable. Years ago, when you traveled, you dressed up. That's what everyone did in all parts of the culture, right? But now people are a lot more casual, a lot more dressed down. Is like this an antiquated idea? Is this like old school to like want to dress up? And again, does it go back to respectability politics, which says that we have to take part in what the dominant culture is saying is respectable in order to be viewed as worthy or whatever. Like,
but I think that there was a time when we actually took pride in how we looked.
And I'll co-sign that. It happens in nature. I know our society always comes up with these beautiful descriptions of things, and respectability politics happens in nature. The biggest, the best, the strongest survive, period. And a lot of time, animals mate based on how the guy looks, the girl looks, and the others, they die. And socially, it happens as well. It just is what it is. So as far as the respectability politics, that's where I stand on that. As far as the aunties, things do change. Just 2 years ago, walking around in a face mask in the United States would have been like, you weird, you got
Right.
cooties. But now, not only do we do it on a regular basis, it's become stylish. We've printed them in florals
Blinged
and
them out.
kente and blinged them out, just like we said a few moments ago. So I recognize that things do change in style and fashion according to what's necessary. But these bonnets, we got to remember its function. So the mask has a function, and we employ that regularly now for a reason. The bonnet's function is what?
Is to keep your hair from breaking when it's up against a cotton pillowcase
We're not walking around the streets
on pillows.
and I'll throw this in. You also get into an area of hygiene. You don't wear. How many of our parents, grandparents, have said, "Don't put your street clothes in the bed," or we don't even walk in the house with our outdoor shoes. But now you're taking your head, the same hair bonnet that you're putting on your pillow to sleep at night. You walking around. You going to a hookah bar.
Oh,
You walking by the construction site with all this dust.
Hookah bar. Wait, okay, so let me ask you this, because I also was looking at this from a historical context, and when we think about, and full disclosure, for me, my position has changed, and I don't agree with the ladies. There are some parts of this that I agree with as a personal choice, and as in rearing my own daughter, right? I told her, no, you don't wear a bonnet outside, as personal choices, right? But my position has changed from the perspective of, I do not want to participate in the policing of Black women and Black women's hair. So I just, that was where it changed for me. And so I started to think about that idea of like changing over history, the idea of Black women and their hair coverings over time, and how back in the 17th century or the 18th century, the laws that were enacted around Black women having to cover their hair, one, as a way to like stifle them and like make them be visibly relegated to a certain position in society, right? And Black women being like, okay, guess what? I got a whole trick for you. Watch me turn this hair wrap into a whole style, right? I'm gonna do all the bling. I'm gonna do all the things, right? And like then it evolving into from like head wraps that were mandated to like, hey, this is something now that we've adopted and we're rocking, to like now, is there a difference between like a cute bonnet and a head wrap, or just still carrying forward this idea that society should have something to say about what Black women wear on their heads?
so my girlfriend and I were talking the other day, and we were talking about the bonnets. I think somebody had pulled up beside us at a restaurant, and the mother and the daughter, but they were like older. So you're talking about like somebody that could be my grandmother and my mother's age. They both had on bonnets, and they both went into Copper Canyon. And I was like, oh, and I was sitting there with Mars, and I'm thinking, I would never do that with her,
Okay.
But then my girlfriend said, you remember when it was okay, in the 80s to wear your shower cap because you had the jerry curl activator, right, in your hair, and people were literally walking around like that. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I mean, and then it became a thing, but like now you're not just wearing it because you got the activator and you're trying to get the curl right. You just got this thing on all day. Same thing, because it might have started out where, okay, I'm wearing my bonnet to make a quick trip to the Home Depot. Now I'm just gonna wear this all day because I don't feel like pulling my hair together. Or for somebody else, like me, I sit under the dryer for 3.5 hours when I get a roller set, right? So what works for me to not sweat my hair out, I keep it pin curled. So, but to somebody else, pin curls may be like, why you didn't take your hair down? But to me, it can look elegant if you don't have big bobby pins all over the place,
Right.
right?
And for me coming from the north, like we come
would
out
wrap,
the place with
exactly.
your hair
You
wrapped
wrapped,
with the
yes,
bobby
yes.
pins in. But see that I think that's the other thing. That whole phrase of like ghetto until proven fashionable or until like mainstream steals the idea. Now you see like we wear the head wrap with the bobby pins and you might see that in vogue. Whereas like when I first moved here, like when I first started telling the hairdresser, like, no, leave my wrap in, put the pins in, they were like, what? That's that you don't supposed to do that. So I think that there's always this constant narrative around us policing one another around what we should be doing with our hair, because it's like, and I think the thing that made me change my position as well was this idea that there is always something to be said about our hair, and we're the only ones who suffer from that level of like having to jump through hoops, because it's like it's either a wig or a weave or the braids are not right or the, you know what I'm saying, like, or you got a perm or you don't have a perm, or your hair is blonde. So there's always these like public commentaries around what's right and wrong about our hair, and on top of it, like, we have to do so much to be quote unquote presentable. Like, I lived my whole like ridiculousness about my hair over the pandemic on Instagram, like running. I cut my hair, I started letting it grow out. I was going running. It was straight on the ends because of the blonde. It was curly at the roots because it was just doing this thing. Couldn't get to the hairdresser. Didn't care after a certain point. But like this idea of like, I got to get braids for a couple weeks. Then I had to put on a wig. Then I got to put on a turban because I was going through so many changes with my hair. We're the only group who really has to even go through all these twists and turns to be presentable.
So my thoughts about that is, like, if you think about, again, goes back to how different we are, and I love how we are, but some of what we do, I think, is only done that way because we don't have sort of the mentoring in place, right? And so, for example, I wouldn't mind if my daughter got lash extensions, but she can't come to my house with lashes that come down to her chin, because I know that those were intended for theater, right?
Right.
And so if you can't see me when you we got a problem. And I'm not, and then like if they're super thick and like you like this tarantula is on your eyes, but somebody has to say that. And it's a very uncomfortable space to be in when you're at a store and the cashier is like young enough to be your daughter. And you're like, can you help me with such and such? And she can't see you. And you're like, well, you got to open your eyes up.
Again,
right?
functional.
Right. So
What are we doing?
Yeah. And so it's the same thing with our hair. It's like, I think if we took the time to just say, when you go to this place, you should look this way. If you're doing this, you should look this way, because it's really about mentoring. And because of the populations of girls and boys that I have served, a lot of times they really just don't know. You know, so it's not so like when you say you told your daughter you can't go out in a bonnet, I've said that to my daughter. But how many other young girls have a mother who's saying that something's wrong with that? 9 times out of 10, the people that I'm serving, their mother has on the bonnet too. So I got to talk to her. You see what I'm saying? And it's not that I feel like it's a bad thing to wear a bonnet. I'm saying, I know how I felt. My grandmother used to come to my school with her rollers in her hair, so I might also be burned. So a little bit of triggering, a little bit of trauma. Don't come to my school like that. Like, right?
And she was like, don't tell me what to do.
And see, but my grandmother also didn't realize that if she didn't have to keep those rollers in for a whole week to have that curl for Sunday church, I was like, those curls are going to be tight, sis. Like, take those rollers out. But she literally wore those rollers every day because of Sunday church. Okay.
Final thoughts about
this topic?
about this idea of like policing ourselves, or do you feel like no? It's up to us within our own community to police each other, or policing may not even be the right term.
I don't want us to police each other. I think we should
Police
just take
is
care of
a
our
trigger
village.
word.
Yeah, it's the police.
But taking care of each other.
Yes, let's take care of
and
each other.
grooming and growing and introducing next level living.
So, for example, so look at
Introducing next level
look at our. So, I do workforce development, right? Your image consultant. She trains people for the workforce too, and preparing them in a place where whoever sees you, like they have to be presentable as soon as you see them, right? In hospitality. So all of these things are married. So if I'm preparing the person, right, I gotta tell them to come to you. Like I'm giving them like the directives. This is what you can do. This is what you don't do. And then I'm gonna say, but you gotta go over to Sharonda so she can tell you what to wear, right, for the interview. Then she's gonna go to her to get into hospitality. But if they don't have this level of mentorship around them, they just show up at the interview.
As if they're going to Home Depot.
Right.
Well,
Home Depot is getting a real shout out.
Home Depot.
and so on that note, like that. So one of the things I want to wrap up this segment, I want to say that there's some interesting points that you're making in terms of mentorship, in terms of, and what you were saying, Glenda, in terms of taking care of one another and introducing next level living in whatever that may mean. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this during the love segment is like, how do we have these conversations in love? Yes. And how do we, like, policing is a trigger word, and it might be looking at it too harshly when we're talking about us as Black women having the conversation amongst ourselves. And so we're not going to solve it. We probably won't convince someone who has a differing opinion, but I wanted to have that conversation and get you guys' take on it. And in our next segment, we're going to have a very, very special guest who we're still talking about hair, but we're going to be talking about hair in a whole nother way. And so after this quick little segue break, we're going to be meeting our next guest. Hey guys, this is Sharonda Irving, image consultant and host of Art Loves Fashion. If you missed today's episode, don't worry, don't stress. You can go to my YouTube channel and see today's episode as well as some of my other past episodes. You'll be able to see some of my super fantastic guests as well as fun content. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure that you leave me something in the comments. Don't forget, our airing schedule is every second and fourth Sunday from 5 to 6 o'clock. Tune in with me live on Facebook and on YouTube. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Okay, welcome back to our next segment, our art segment. I am incredibly excited to welcome my next guest. Her name is Adebunmi Gdadebo. She is an amazing artist, also fellow Jersey girl. I'm always excited to talk to my Jersey people because I've been living here in Washington, D.C. for so long, but I get a chance to connect with my Jersey folks. But she is a visual artist who is really, really, really making an incredible splash in the art world. And I asked her to join us today because of the series. What's the name of the series that involves the black hair? What is that called?
I guess the current series I'm doing is called True Blue.
True Blue, yes.
The True Blue series.
The True Blue series. So the True Blue series, the thing that stood out for us was the use of black hair in the art. And to be honest, at first I was like, I saw it in a picture and I saw on Instagram you had done like a call for donations. And I was like, wow, okay. I wasn't really sure how to like receive that. And then I kept looking at it like, and I guess that's the idea. An artist wants to provoke you in some sort of way. And I saw like more close-up pictures of it. And I was like, oh, wow, there's like all these layers to this art. And so tell me a little bit about how you got there. And no, before we go there, I'm going to ask you the question that I asked the ladies at the top of the segment. The controversy around bonnets in public, for or against?
I am against. Well, no, wait. I'm for. Sorry.
You're
When
for
I said
bonnets,
against, I'm
for
against
bonnets in
like
public.
telling women that they shouldn't do that. So I means I'm for.
So you are for bonnets in public
Yes.
because we should not be telling women. Let me ask you this: do you wear bonnets in public?
I have locks that take a long time to dry, so there are moments, and even recently, like I was going to a wedding and I wanted my style to hold full until, only take it out right before the wedding so my hair wouldn't drop. And I was going around to stores and things the day before the wedding with foam rollers and my scarf, but it was, it was a necessary thing for me to do, because I wanted my style to be in place for the wedding and to last throughout the wedding. And also my locks take a really, really long time to dry because they're very thick.
Yeah.
So, that was like just a kind of personal thing for me where I may have been deemed not presentable. But I think like even in my artwork, and because I was really intentional when I started using Black hair in my work to really understand a lot of the nuances and the intricacies around the history of Black hair, not only in this country, but our relationship to our hair before slavery and colonialism, in parts of Africa. So I think with all of that kind of knowledge that I've gleaned through my practice, I really struggle with feeling, and you use the word policing, and I know a lot of the women were saying that's too harsh, but I think it's exactly like the accurate word, and you kind of touched on a little bit about the Tignon law that was put in place in Louisiana in 1786, where they it was a police, and I think policing is an accurate word because that's exactly what it was, right? It was a law that was put in place to say that Creole women could not wear their hair out, that they had to cover it up because there was this fear that our hair was so beautiful and elaborate that it was attracting the attention of white men. It was a fear that it was our kind of statement of our freedom. And it was a way to delegate us and to say that, no, you're of the slave class. You may be like light-skinned Creole and, but you are Black, you are a slave. And that type of, even currently in the news, I know all over my timeline, you see how like that kind of culture of what to do with our hair and how to wear our hair is prevalent when you see, this issue around the swim caps, where they, with the swim caps that you can't wear Black women can't wear the bigger swim caps to accommodate their Afro textured hair because it's not, the Olympics is saying it's not necessary, but it all connects to these standards of beauty and just this standard that is really steeped in whiteness, And when we say presentable, when we say, like, how are we defining what is presentable? When we talk about respectability politics, I think a lot about, and one of the women's touched on it as like a necessary thing. After emancipation, respectability politics kind of just grew because it was necessary for our survival, to look presentable, to look respectful in white spaces could have been, equate to, did you live or not? Did you secure some type of employment? And it was necessary, but you think about the legacy of that and how we may, as a community, internalize these kind of notions of how to dress, how to look, how to behave. And like in turn, that kind of internalization of these kind of standards of what is acceptable, especially under the white gaze, becomes a form of us kind of just policing each other. And you see that it goes beyond our community when you see how the Olympics says you can't wear this, or when you look historically and you see that there's always been laws around how to wear our hair, how we should look, especially for Black women.
So you see some of this as a form of internalized racism, that we have now become our own oppressors?
Yeah, in a way, I do believe that you could draw like the through line between that, and not to say that everyone's intention behind telling their daughter or their sister or their friend, like, girl, don't wear that bonnet outside the house, is kind of a racist act. But I do think that we could like really start to unpack and like look at the roots of why these things become issues. And like I like how you talked a lot about how, you know, your views around this subject started to shift as you felt like you didn't want to participate in kind of what you said, the policing of Black women in our hair. Because I mean, from little girls wearing braids or locks, from athletes with locks saying that they can't compete because their hair's too long, and officials literally snipping their hair off, like that's very violent and traumatic. You know, we see it to Black women and being in the military. I mean, there are literal laws around how Black women can't wear their natural hair to fight and defend this country, you know? So I guess for me, especially someone who uses Black hair in my work and thinking about the histories of Black hair, and then the histories, or, you know, the other histories I depict in my work. And I'm also a Black woman with freeform locks. I know there's a lot of women that may say like, this is, I mean, I could wear my hair cute and stuff, but a lot of people may not even think this is the most presentable or kind of
the locks. Like there's that whole continuum of like, okay, so you have locks, then you have like, oh, cute dainty sister locks, and then you have like, oh, quote unquote groomed locks, and then there's like freeform locks. So I'm sure there's like that whole nother layer, which, yeah. So you mentioned, one of the things you mentioned was like how you, what I enjoyed about your art was this layered effect. When you zoom down into your artwork, like you see the color, the indigo color, which is significant. You see the hair adding the texture, but then there's another layer behind that. Mm-hmm. And
yes,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, so it was when I was in art school in New York at School of Visual Arts, I kind of made the decision to use Black hair as an art material. And it was like a really intentional and deliberate, you know, decision. I remember just being in my classes for years, because, you know, I'm studying fine art for, you know, this amount of time. And it became really apparent in these art history classes that the history that I was being taught, the history of paint, the history of just art, like, you know, the canon, was a white history. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, I think it wasn't like until like 500 years into art history was the first time I even saw a Black person in a painting. You know, and I mean, I think after that painting, maybe 3 other times, I saw a Black person either depicted as the creator of a work or the subject in a painting. And I think it was in that kind of context where you realize that not only is like art history this white European history, but it's told through the material paint. So to even use paint, it kind of like is loaded, and it comes with this white history. So for me, Black hair became a material to kind of explore as, you know, as a rejection of these traditional materials like paint. You know, Black hair, and I use human hair, but Black hair, it becomes a way of really grounding in my work in our DNA. You know, like I am very intentional that every single piece I mix carries our ancestry, carries our DNA. You know, Black hair is political. Black hair is spiritual. So all those things, kind of just by using a single strand of hair, all those things are within the work. And also just because I use Black hair, it starts my artwork, my process starts in your bathroom. It starts on wash day. It starts in the barber chair, you know, in my neighborhood. It starts at the curly hair salon. So I loved how I was bringing like these Black spaces and these Black moments into my process. And I've been making art out of human hair ever since then. And the True Blue series is True Blue comes from the name True Blue Plantation, which was the plantation my family was enslaved on in South Carolina, which was an indigo, which the blue, you know, that name blue comes from the indigo. It was a indigo and rice plantation. And I've been exploring kind of my personal relationship to this country, how it started, and doing a lot of work, kind of telling the story of True Blue Plantation and what this plantation is currently, which is True Blue Cemetery, the burial ground that my enslaved ancestors are buried in.
Interesting. South Carolina. We got a lot of South Carolina was super busy.
Yeah, well, the one of the major slave ports in this country was in Charleston.
Yeah. That's where my family ancestry is, South Carolina as well. I will say, first of all, thank you. Like, I think I appreciate your perspective as well. I think that there's definitely this conversation is gonna continue because again, it goes back so far. It's an ever evolving conversation with so many variant layers to it. I think I just kind of keep going back to the fact that like this idea of like public admonishment, and like the narrative side, like respectability narrative, because I had to like go back. That's my thing. I always like research stuff. Respectability narrative bleeding into respectability politics. And then when we start forming policies around the ideas of respectability is when we are really in dangerous territory. And so we as a community have to be super careful around what we are like saying, because the politics that get created and the policies that get created around it more often than not, or almost always, become dangerous for us as a community. And I think that's where it's like, I guess that's where kind of like why it got so controversial, and where my mind started to go like, oh, this is kind of going beyond just like, girl, come on, let me pull you up, you know, get it together, let me gather you. Like we as Black women, we should be making sure that we are like pulling each other up and like, girl, you walked out the bathroom with your dress tucked in your pantyhose.
Right.
Because some people will allow you to just keep on
Exactly.
walking. But like, where is the like us having a conscious awareness as a community that there's the line between like holding each other in love and like legitimizing respectability politics. So Adebunmi, we are gonna be following you,
Yes,
and watching you, because your art is amazing. I can't wait to see the pottery that comes out of your residency project, and what you have coming on the horizon. You will be coming. Some of your art will be being displayed in some really, really major museums very soon. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
No, you could.
Okay, because you're going to be in the Smithsonian, correct?
Yeah, my
Yes,
work
our art
was
is going to be in
excellent.
the Smithsonian. Which museum is it? African American?
Well, actually, both. I'm like blessed to say both. My work was acquired by the National Museum of African Art Smithsonian, and then the new African American Museum of History and Culture.
That's
Smithsonian.
beautiful. Yes.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
So that's what I was like. I should have said that up front, because we were talking to, you know, her, and yes, and so go see her, go look at her website. We will be here with bells on at the unveiling of your artwork. We can't wait until, I'm sure you will be in DC very soon. And I thank you again for your being so gracious enough to join us on such short notice. And
Of course, I was so excited to participate in this conversation. I don't know, and I love how I think, you know, one thing like Monique originally bringing it up, you know, like although I originally saw her video on the Shade Room, but that is still like a space that is just open to others. So like what I like about having this conversation is it's in our like private space, like Black women talking to Black women, and this on your platform, like, and I guess I just bring that up because, like, not to say we shouldn't be having these conversations, but like to have these conversations in earshots of others, you know, it kind of also just makes me a little hesitant, because you drew the connections between these conversations turning into policies that go back to discriminate against us. So I'm just happy to have this conversation amongst all of you women in this kind of safe space.
And I'm always like that when I see people like publicize things. I suffer from really bad secondhand embarrassment, number one. But secondly, I really am one of those people like, I'm going to pull you to the side. So I think that when I see stuff like out there on social media where somebody's blasting something that one of us has done, I'm like, no, you go to the inbox or you call them on the phone. But like, we cannot put that out there.
You keep the
like,
family business in the house.
That's how I feel. Like, I'm like, we cannot let everybody know.
And everybody can't have an opinion.
Exactly.
Everybody can't have an opinion. We hold each other in love. And when we have these conversations, and it might be ugly behind closed doors, but once we work it out, we'll let y'all know.
Exactly. We'll come tell y'all when it's perfected.
Right, exactly. Well, I appreciate you once again joining us today, Adebunmi. Thank you to Sam, and thank you to Glenda for joining us today. You guys were amazing. So the final segment was going to be a super quick segment, and it's like carrying on with this theme of head wraps and head coverings, because again, we kind of, in even talking about locks, like there's this whole continuum, of head wraps all the way up to bonnets. And me as an image consultant, my thing is, well, we're going to make it fashion. So I pulled up a couple of photos of some of our favorite fashionistas and just a couple of other beautiful Black women who are showing us how we rock our head coverings and keep it fashion. And also, look, this is what I am not prepared to do it today, but hey, we got June Ambrose. Honey, she loves a good head covering. We have her on now this right here, I pulled this picture up because I was like, this is a borderline between a head wrap and a bonnet to me. But,
So where's she going though?
I don't know. It looks dope though. I
like it.
You know what? Actually, this photo is her at the Louvre in Paris preparing for the On the Run tour. So she's out.
But she's
In
not
the
on the
museum.
stage. So it's a
But she's in
the
outside in the museum.
Sure.
Right.
Preparing
And I
to
can't
go
really fully see her, but what is the one that people wear? It's more regal and it has like
The
What do you
galays
call-
where it's like layers and layers that go out like this.
no, it's like a bonnet. What do they call turban?
Oh,
so it looks more
okay.
like a turban. And so obviously like the older
I think
women.
I got some other pictures of that one. Go, you can show
So
them.
like the
Look.
older women would be
Oh
wearing
yeah,
those.
honey,
And I-
I be looking for the sequin turbans at the beauty supply store. We have Rihanna. Rihanna was on the cover of Vogue, honey, with a straight up do-rag.
Do-rag.
No bling on it, no nothing, just a do-rag. And again, going back to that idea of like ghetto until proven fashionable. There was a woman in, I can't remember where, but like she got banned from her kids' school for
Yes.
coming to the school with a bonnet on.
Yes.
But now we got Rihanna on the cover of Vogue with the do-rag. So what's...
Or Solange at the Met Gala with a do-rag.
Yes, I think I have a picture of Rihanna because Rihanna did it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rihanna was also at the Met Gala with one. Solange's was black. Rihanna's was, I don't know if that was Met Gala. I think it was because she had on that dress that was like
Yes.
almost see-through.
So each of
Stop
those,
the whole show.
the cover said Rebel, so
I
it
was about to
said,
say so. It was very.
and the Met Gala is all about being extra.
But we can say that it's,
So I think what happens is the mainstream then gets back to the neighborhood, right? And
no,
then we
the
get-
neighborhood
This
makes it
time
to
it
the
comes.
nation.
No, no,
mainstream.
no. It goes. I think it makes a reverse. So it starts with us, and then somebody, the rebel, says, "Oh no, they're not gonna make my people feel bad or whatever." I'm in agreement with that, right? And then somebody like Rihanna will make it look presentable or do something like she did
Fashionable.
with fashionable with it, right? But she got the money, the makeup, and nobody's putting her out of a school. And I think that's the part that we don't get. Like if you look at Jay-Z's hair, in this current state, one of our kids would definitely be criticized and all types of stuff.
But I
And
think
I
that's
love
the
his
thing.
hair.
But I think that we have to. I think that that's the whole thing. Like we have to push back against that because the truth of the matter is that in fashion we've always known that the mainstream fashion world comes and steals from us,
I
and
agree.
then while we're down here like demonizing one another for what we're doing, like, girl, that is ghetto, what are you doing? Then it comes on the cover of Vogue. Now all of a sudden it's respectable and it's acceptable.
But see, I'm the other way. I'm the mothering, nurturing, pull the village together one. I'm not like, girl, take that off, that's ghetto. I'm like, girl, you do not need to be getting put out of your daughter's school.
Right, I don't want you to get put
And
out
I'm
of
in the
school. What is
middle.
it?
I'm like, go ahead and wear it to the Met Gala. Go ahead and wear it to certain parties or whatever, but don't wear it to your interview.
Right, because
You
there's a
can
time
wear
and
it
place
when
for
they're
everything.
There's a
calling
time
you
and
a
place.
rebel. There's a
Yes.
time and
And I
place for
think that
everything.
when you think about all that's put into creating a Vogue cover, right?
Right.
That's a lot. Like you don't do that in your bathroom, right?
But
And
what
you
if I
don't-
do?
But you can. What I'm saying is, you don't do that level of artistry in your bathroom. So they're airbrushing. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into the final
but it
product.
still boils down to the fact that like I was doing it in my natural state, but because you are deeming it respectable
No, now
because you
it's
did all this
celebrity.
other stuff. Now it's okay for me, but why wasn't it okay for me?
It's just like I feel the same way about the whole cornrows with the Kardashians. Why are you wearing cornrows?
But that's appropriate. I think that difference is appropriation. Where, like, for instance, when Solange wore the do-rag to the Met Gala, and yes, it is that Met Gala is a fundraiser for the costume department at the Met. It's costume. But I think like the larger kind of statement that Solange was trying to make is this kind of rebelling and embracing of Blackness, you know, in a very public way. You know, like even like she had a halo around her do-rag to kind of this statement of kind of making it sacred. You know, this thing that has been deemed as ghetto, inappropriate, unpresentable, she made it sacred. And it was like a claiming of her Blackness. So like also like thinking about the word present is this kind of hierarchy of someone who has the ability to like to kind of place judgment or to
legitimize it. Now all of a sudden you legitimize something that already should have been legitimate because we said it was.
Yeah, and like for me, like even to decide to grow my hair in free form, and it's kind of crazy because what all free form is just allowing your hair to be in its most natural state, you know? And there's policing and conversation around the appearance of a freeform lock, which is literally this is just what my black hair naturally does. And like for me, kind of navigating, especially the art world is white as hell. You know, me navigating this white space, I was never, if my hair or my appearance or my nappiness or my Blackness is not appropriate for this job, is gonna deter me from getting the position, this is not the company or the organization or the institution I even want to be a part of, because that's a form of violence.
I agree 100%. However, I feel like in the communities that I serve, most of them are like in poverty, right? So I think about it from the perspective of like dealing with people or meeting people where they are. Right, so if we're trying to create a position or opportunity for people to be upwardly mobile, right, we have to start with some of those tenets of like, so this is how you have to present yourself when you go into an interview. These are the types of questions that you're going to be asked. This is the way that you articulate yourself. You kind of teaching all of those things. And then they have to get to a certain place where they can make the decisions or they have the autonomy to say, oh, this is not a company I would want to work for. But there is a long road to having that, to be in that space, right? And so getting them prepared for that. I have a son with locks and a daughter that is always in braids. Why? Because she swims and I'm not doing her hair every day. So, but I'm very, very hard on him about like keeping his locks maintenance. To me, it's more from a hygiene perspective. I'm sorry, for his hygiene. I'm like, I don't want your hair to be dirty, and he got a new daughter. Like all of these things. Before he even became a father, I was still very adamant about like make sure that you're going to the salon and getting your locks clean and maintenance and tightened and styled or whatever, and not just sort of letting yourself go. And I'm saying that because when he shows up, there's already this negative thing around black men with locks. So I have to, it's sad to say that I'm, as his mom, still like, oh, you got to keep your locks together. And, because when you walk into a room, it's already, or you pull up in a car, the police are looking at you a certain way because you got locks or whatever. So make sure they're neat. And those are some of those conversations that we have as black mothers, that maybe we don't want to have, but we have to have.
I don't know. I just struggle with that because, like, even in you describing, like, letting your hair go or being unkept, like,
that's how it is.
No,
like what does that mean? To let your hair just grow as it naturally is like equated to like unkept, or and I'm not arguing your point about making sure your locks are like kind of maintain cleanliness. Mm-hmm. But like my locks are very clean, but they're nappy as hell, and it's like, and I have never twisted my roots, and this is just how my hair grows. So like I guess I just struggle with it because there's like all this energy, and I think it is a form of internalizing and policing. There's all this energy around conforming and what presentable is and what dirty is and what unkeptness is, instead of putting more energy into like, this is what your hair does naturally. Like our hair is nappy, it's kinky, like I think one of the reasons why I see a lot of like younger, like the generation below me, I'm a millennial, like, so everyone's wearing their natural hair, and growing up, and I'm sure even in your generation, it was not as attractive or, to wear your hair nappy, or like, because there was all these correlations between, where press and curl and perm, and wearing it straight was more presentable. And now, because there's so much energy that's put into like embracing your texture, the natural hair community, embracing 4C kind of texture, it's like you empower embracing us, and it takes away the power from all these things that say this isn't the right way. And I just like, I don't know, for me, I want to put all of my energy into powering like other Black women and girls and things to like, and to just embracing ourselves and our Blackness in its fullest, darkest, kinkiest form. And we start to kind of just take away that energy that goes into this opposite kind of thing where it's like policing. And
so on that note, it's such a all-encompassing conversation, right? Like, and I feel like we probably could go all the way into it. And I think to round out the conversation around the fashion aspect, is that continuum of bonnet to head wrap to decolonizing what's fashionable, stop stealing what people are doing and putting it on the runway to then legitimize what's fashionable. Because Lenny Kravitz with his freeform locks, we love him all day long because mainstream has decided that Lenny Kravitz specifically is cool, but maybe not other people with freeform locks. So, the continuum, I always got to bring it back to the fashion. I'm going to big up my girl, Ashley and Company, Jelani Women. She gifted me my Crowned by Jelani. This is a bonnet. And for me, it was just like, it's big, because the only thing about this one for me is that it's big. I don't have locks and I don't have braids right now, but when I get my braids, I'm gonna be, yes, and it's satin. Hold on, yes, y'all gotta see it. It's satin on the inside. And listen, she gave this to me while I was on my birthday trip, and my hair was the struggle at the moment, and I was like, yes, honey. And so it's satin on the inside, and you tie it around or whatever, and you can, like, I guess, make it as big as you need to, or like I took it and kind of like scrunched it into one of those, like, how you wrap it around the back and make it like a little ball on the end. That's how I did mine, because otherwise, this the bonnet I got. This my bonnet. I can't wear this outside, but let's make, if you got to go outside, make it fashion. This the other one I have. This one, I can't pronounce her name, but her name is Ariel's. She does the turbans. I was doing these because we couldn't get to the hairdresser during the lockdown.
Yeah, and that's like a headband. I like it.
But again, or you take your gigantic scarf and you make your own head wrap. So I think that there's this continuum of what you decide is fashionable and beautiful. What you decide is appropriate, and outside of what letting mainstream society wants to steal from you, respin it, and then feed it back to you and tell you it's presentable. We decide for ourselves. And I think that that's really what it's all about. We decide for ourselves. It's about self-determination and about within our own communities, like going back and realizing where some of our own internal biases come from, so that we can then unpack those and then decide for ourselves, so that we can move forward in whatever that decision becomes. And just as Black women, loving one another in whatever package that we decide to show up in.
Yes.
And holding each other in the highest of regards.
Yes.
So that we can level up our lives in whichever way that is going to be. So on that note, head wraps, do-rags, bonnets, but keep it fashion. I thank you guys for spending your time with me today on Art Loves Fashion. Thank you to my guests, both in person as well as over technology. We so appreciate the ability to be able to be in community with one another thanks to technology. And I will see you guys next time on Art Loves Fashion. Hey guys, this is Sharonda Irving, image consultant and host of Art Loves Fashion. If you missed today's episode, don't worry, don't stress. You can go to my YouTube channel and see today's episode as well as some of my other past episodes. You'll be able to see some of my super fantastic guests as well as fun content. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure that you leave me something in the comments. Don't forget, our airing schedule is every second and fourth Sunday from 5 to 6 o'clock. Tune in with me live on Facebook and on YouTube. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Welcome to Art Loves Fashion. I'm your host, Sharonda Irving. I'm an image consultant, professional developer, art curator and collector, a wife and a mom. This show, Art Loves Fashion, is about, you guessed it, art, love, and fashion. We'll be meeting new people, trying interesting things, and hopefully learning something new. Sounds kind of vague, right? That's because I want you to join me on Sundays at 5 o'clock as we take a journey of all things creative and beautiful with art, loves, fashion.